Life is full of mystery. We wonder and ask many questions, and only a few ever get answered. Not knowing can be nerve-wracking, but it's the tension of wanting answers that drives us to find them. Fans of Alan Wake have been waiting for over 10 years for answers. Alan Wake 2 is here to give them, but is that what we really want? Some things are best left to the imagination. If you had all the answers, what would there be to question? And if there's nothing to question, what's the point of having all the answers? This is a loop I found myself in, and as I drifted further and further, I found myself spiraling out of control.
It takes into psychotic reality. I'm trapped here. I write to escape. I've tried this many times, written countless stories, forgotten how many. I keep failing, but I must keep trying. I use the story to dive deeper. Every word I write is a step forward on this spiral of the darkness. I dive to the bottom to find the answer, the map, and the key, the compass. It's combined to form a door leading out. But how do you open a door that's not a door? At the bottom of an ocean that's not an ocean. And a lake that's not a lake.
Alan Wake 2 begins with a series of questions. Why does Alan have a glowing light in the middle of his head? Who is the cult of the tree? Who is Saga Anderson? Is that Max Payne? And why am I some naked guy? See, that's what Alan Wake loves to do. The whole story constantly throws you in weird situations that make you question the world around you. But to answer one question, Saga Anderson is our co-protagonist. She's an FBI agent here in Bright Falls, investigating a series of murders with her partner Alex Casey. After finding a strange manuscript depicting their arrival and events to come, she finds herself excited to dive deeper into this mystery. Being detectives, it's only natural that something this odd would draw them in. It's the job of a detective to solve a mystery, or a simple way to put it is to answer questions, to piece together the story left behind at the scene of the crime. Alan, on the other hand, is a writer. Saga finds him at the shore of Cauldron Lake. After escaping the dark place, he finds himself trying to piece together his story as he's being questioned by the detectives. He's confused and frightened, but not by the law.
Scratch.
An evil doppelganger of Alan escaped the dark place along with him, and he believes Scratch is the one behind the cult and other strange events happening in Bright Falls. The story that Scratch wrote is coming true, and the world around him is being reshaped by a horror story.
Sheriff?
What the hell? Show me the clicker.
Alan has to retrace his memories in the dark place, writing story after story in order to leave. The job of a writer is to create a believable story within the confines of the pre-established world. And this world was built on a wicked foundation. In a way, being a writer isn't much different than being a detective. Both must piece together a story. Only difference is, for a detective, the story is already in motion, and for the writer, they must make up one worthy for the reader to digest. Meaning a writer holds both roles. They must form questions while providing an answer. Seeing as Alan is looping in the dark place, he has to actually play detective to recall and even alter his or Scratch's previous work in order to escape. Like I said, Alan Wake 2 is a story full of questions that I was dying to be answered. The story loves to play with contrasts and similarities. The storytelling can go from straightforward to cryptic to chaotic to on the nose.
You're not gonna get what you want. You think you know. You know shit. You don't really want to know. You're gonna get what's coming to you.
A story like this is something we rarely see in gaming. It's dancing on the edge of brilliant and idiotic, meaning with the slightest hiccup, the illusion that any of this stuff is believable could come crashing down, but Remedy held on really tight, and what I got was arguably the greatest story I ever experienced in entertainment. Now, I'm not going to spoil anything. Remember, it's a game about questions and answers, and going any deeper will ruin the fun. However, I will tell you that your experience with the story may differ depending on a few things. If you haven't played Alan Wake 1, Control, and even Max Payne, you may not understand the deeper lore of the universe Remedy is creating. It's like trying to get into the MCU with the latest film. You will enjoy what's in front of you, but not as much as someone who's been invested into the entire franchise. Thankfully, I can say you could easily play these games out of order and still connect the dots. So I wouldn't stress over playing Alan Wake 1 before 2, but you should at some point. This is one of those stories that easily can create a fan out of anyone. It's so many tiny bits and pieces that connect dots here and there that will make you searching on forums for days. After beating the game, I even looked on forums to see what other fans had, theories they may have came across, or dots they connected that I didn't connect. Or I just wanted to see if people saw what I saw, and a lot of times they did.
They know what's happening here. How do you know about the story?
But if you are someone that doesn't like trippy stories and prefer something more direct, I could see those people not being amused by Alan Wake 2's way of storytelling. It's for those that love conspiracies, the supernatural, and anything weird and strange. The game even goes out of its way to have a musical number. That's how crazy it gets. I highly recommend you play Alan Wake 2 with no distractions and pay attention to everything. Now the gameplay is where things do get a bit more mixed for me. Alan and Saga both share playtime, with a slight difference between the two. Saga, being a detective, has to search the environment to find evidence for each case. This evidence is brought to her mind place, which from a gameplay perspective is a glorified menu system. Here, Saga can place the evidence where it should go in order to solve the case. From a narrative standpoint, this is a fun way to make the detective work interactive with the player. However, there really isn't much to this mechanic. You can't fail at it, so it's not a puzzle, which I do think adding some kind of penalty would have spiced up what basically is an index that you have to organize yourself. She also can question people she comes across in the story. These are really just glorified cutscenes. It's just a unique way to tell the story. Again, it's a gameplay mechanic, but not really. Now, Alan has a similar mechanic. As you travel through the dark place, Alan sees visions of inspiration. Once he's processed them, or rather you've watched them all the way through, he's able to rewrite the story and change the world around him. Unlike Saga, Alan's writer's room has less features, but makes up for it by actually having gameplay and narrative impact. Changing the scene isn't just visual either. Paths once blocked become available, enemies can spawn in due to a world shift, and overall Alan's main feature provides a puzzle challenge. You could have multiple options at once, and switching between them could push you forward or show you optional dialogue. Combat and exploration are again similar between Saga and Alan, but both do have enough differences to make each other's path special. Saga, being in the real world, will explore Bright Falls, while Alan wanders around the Dark Place, which is based off of a dreamlike version of New York. On Saga's side, she will be fighting the Taken, possessed humans taken over by the darkness, and Alan will be fighting the shadows. Really, the main difference between these enemy types is that, in my opinion, the Taken are more deadly than the shadows. They take way more damage than the shadows and oftentimes have more variety of enemies, but shadows often move in greater numbers, so both sides have their own challenges. You could avoid the shadows by turning off your flashlight. Now this is risky because the dark place is, well, dark. So turn off your flashlight basically means you can't see anything, and the shadows look like shadows, which are dark. So you get the point. Turn off your flashlight is a risk versus reward thing. You can see with it on, but you might have to fight more enemies. You turn it off, and you might risk getting sideswiped by an enemy you didn't see coming. It's actually a pretty cool way to add tension to the combat. Both Alan and Saga must use light to break through the darkness in order to do full damage to the enemy. Alan 2 changes how this works, as in the first game, just shining your light on the Taken will slowly chip away at their shield. Here you must use a flashlight boost, which has a set amount of charges before you have to change out the batteries. This change I personally think was a downgrade from the first game. Taking away the ability to do chip damage by simply shining your light at the enemy did remove a sense of strategy from the gameplay. Another thing is the boost kind of locks on to the enemy, unlike the first game, which didn't. Thing is, Alan 2 is a bit janky at times, and this boost is supposed to freeze the Taken so that they can't move, and at times they still did and weren't fazed by it. There is also a weak spot mechanic, where a red glow appears on the enemy and if you hit it, it does critical damage. This only pops up after breaking their shield with a flashlight boost. The idea is nice, but the problem is where the weak spot appears. I believe these weak spots appear randomly, like the location is random, but most of the time they're on the Taken's back. And if you don't know, the way this game works is more like a survival horror game. The characters move very slowly and you're never going to really be able to circle around any of these enemies to hit them in the back. So it kind of becomes a pointless mechanic. This doesn't break the game or anything, but I don't think this is working as intended. And if it is the intention, I don't think this was a wise idea to make slow characters have to hit an enemy from behind that they'll never be able to circle behind themselves. As for the gunplay itself, weapons all packed a punch and felt great to use.
Alan Wake, stop using the words. I need the words. Come on!
Saga has more weapons than Alan, but Alan's weapons are more powerful than Saga's, so again the game strikes a balance between its two protagonists. Saga's pistol is weak but holds the most amount of ammo, and the ammo that you'll find for it is very frequent. She gets a sawed-off shotgun and a pump-action shotgun. The sawed-off shotgun has more stopping power, and the pump-action can fire more shells. The hunting rifle is very powerful and works great at range, but the crossbow is the most interesting weapon of them all. The crossbow at first I thought was bad. The slow reload animation really puts you in harm's way, and until you upgrade it, it can only fire one arrow at a time. The bow makes up for this by typically killing Taken in no more than 2 hits, and ammo can be retrieved after firing. Alan only has his revolver, a double-barrel shotgun, and his classic flare gun. Alan's revolver can be loaded in one go, instead of having to insert every bullet, like in the first game. It's also very deadly, making the shotgun kinda pointless if you know where to aim, but if you need to hit more than one target at a time, the double-barrel shotgun does come in handy, especially in close quarters. The flare, just like the first game, is like a grenade launcher. The bright red light blazes like a flame and does splash damage, making it perfect to take out multiple shadows at once. Both Alan and Saga also have a few sub-weapons: flashbangs, flares, and gas canisters. The flashbang has been nerfed now. They no longer kill the Taken, but now they just stun them. The flare works the same as before. It pushes the Taken back while chipping away at their shields. Gas canisters are new and work as you would expect. Throw them near the Taken and then shoot them to explode. It typically kills them in one go. There's also another variant of the flare where basically it works like the flare gun, but it only shoots one flare at a time and does incredible splash damage. It's very rare to find, so you might not ever use one or maybe even recognize it as a different type of flare, but I did use it a few times and it is very deadly. I hinted before that the gameplay can be janky, and no doubt it is. For starters, enemies are bullet sponges. The narrative gives reason for it, and them taking so many hits does add to the tension of the combat, but stunning them with a critical hit could be more consistent. Taken react to where they're shot, headshots do the most damage and can cause them to back up. Also shooting them in the knees or leg can slow them down as well, but it just felt like they were too spongy. They just need to tone it down some. Now there are a few variants of Taken, but I'm gonna talk about the ones that I thought were busted. Now they're Taken that zip around the screen and throw stuff at you. To be fair, these enemies aren't that bad, but again, this game, the character moves so slow that it does add to the tension. I want to be clear, this game is all about tension, and this does make the game fun. This enemy that's fast, zipping around, you don't know where it is. That part is cool. That's not the problem. The problem is that There are times where this enemy will zip around. They're supposed to zip around and then throw something at you. Then zip around and throw something at you. That's not the problem. Sometimes they just never stop zipping around. So you can't shoot them because they're never not moving and you're too slow to ever shoot them when they stop. They just never stop going. I think this is a bug and it should be fixed. The absolute worst enemy in the game are the wolves though. These things, bro, these things. The wolves are fast and run in packs, and they circle around you, and you're supposed to dodge them as they lunge at you. Now, to be fair to the game, this is why you should play this game with no distractions. There is an audio cue to know when the wolf is lunging at you, so even if it's too fast you don't see it, you should be able to hear and know when it's about to charge at you. The problem is that I swear, I could just suck at the game, but I got the dodge mechanic down pat. I know when to dodge, and I will even dodge the wolf, but for whatever reason, the animation for the dodge will linger longer than it's supposed to, and I will still get hit. Another thing is, I don't know any other enemy in this game that hits you back to back to back without some type of pause in between each hit to give you a chance to recoup. The wolves, though, if you dodge, which I believe when you're supposed to, but the game glitches out and thinks it's still supposed to have hit you, they'll make the wolf attack you twice in a row. So even if you dodge when you're supposed to, and it looks like you didn't take damage, but then you do, the wolf will then hit you again. Again, these were the only enemies that I found to be very buggy. And the problem is that the wolves in the story do pop up at certain points, but they can just randomly spawn in too. And when they do, man, it's not a fun time. And I almost forgot to mention, the wolves, just like any other creature in this game, are bullet sponges. So shooting them with the guns basically does next to no damage. Even a shotgun to the face isn't going to do that much damage. And they are so fast, you oftentimes will miss. The best thing to hit them with is the bow, but again, they're fast. But at least I could say if you hit them with the bow, it only takes about 2 hits and they're down. Now I mentioned the dodge mechanic, and this mechanic was in the first game, but it's slightly different here. Outside of the wolves, it does work as intended, and it's something you should never forget to use. Combat as a whole is intense, and because you move slow, having the ability to dodge and attack is crucial. There are perfect dodges, just like in the first game, that cause the taken to slip and fall, and they'll get on their knees. Now, I'm going to be fair. I said something earlier about it's hard to hit the enemies from behind, especially when a lot of the red dots that appear as critical hits pop up. It's often on their backs. Maybe Remedy designed it so that you're supposed to do this maneuver, and then their back is exposed. You can shoot them in the back. But let me tell you something. The game is not designed where oftentimes if you can break an enemy shield and get a red dot to pop up so you can do a critical, there's no reason to let them get so close to you to do this maneuver. So I really hope this wasn't the intention. But if it is, I still don't agree. This is not a good way to implement this mechanic. But anyway, let's get back to the dodging. Like I said, the perfect dodge is here, but unlike Alan Wake 1, I never could get a rhythm for it. You can always pull off a normal dodge. That's no problem. But a perfect dodge is when they slip, like I said. I just never could figure out what's the difference between the timing of a perfect dodge and a regular dodge. There is another mechanic you can use alongside your dodge, and that's the melee attack. If you press the button to shoot while not aiming, you will do a pistol whip. And doing this right after a dodge is actually really great because it stuns the enemy and gets them to back up off you. A lot of the times the enemies will try to attack you 2 times in a row, and dodging them both times is not hard at all if it's not a wolf. But if you want them to back up because you're getting circled around, don't forget to hit them upside the head with your gun. Hey guys, so I'm kind of breaking away from the script real quick because I got an idea when I was talking about the whole pistol whip thing. I said maybe if I could pistol whip the wolves, maybe that's what I'm supposed to do. So I went and tried to do that, and it does not work. Like, the way the pistol whip works, it's not contextual, but when you press the button, not only will you know you did it because the character will do an animation, you could kind of feel it in the DualSense. Yeah, when I tried to do the pistol whip on the wolves, it didn't work after a dodge. So clearly the way this dodge works, and as y'all can see, the wolves are like tearing me up. I'll dodge, and they just linger in the air for longer than expected, and right after the end, I'm locked into this animation, by the way, and so are they. So it's not like I can do anything beyond this. You're just going to take a hit. Any other enemy does not work this way. If you do not dodge right, you will get hit when you see the enemy hit you. Instead here, the wolves are constantly swiping at me in the air and nothing's happening until the very end, and I just take damage. So I just wanted to double back. This is a bug. The pistol whip does not fix this. I just wanted to make sure because I thought maybe that's what you're supposed to do when I was writing my review, but nope, it's just broken, or it's working like it's supposed to, and this just isn't good game design. Jank aside, I did enjoy the combat system in Alan Wake 2. It's so intense, and seeing as you can die in just a few hits, the game carries a heavy challenge, even on normal. Dying could set you back to your last manual save, so play cautiously if you must. If we ever get an Alan Wake 3, I really hope they flesh out this combat system because I think the foundation here is solid. It just has a few bugs and glitches here or there and some strange mechanics that I don't care for. In some ways, it reminds me of The Last of Us Part 2 mixed with the recent Resident Evil remakes. So if you enjoyed those games, you'll like Alan Wake 2's combat. There is a unique upgrade system for both Alan and Saga. Saga finds these lunch boxes that contain pieces of manuscripts which she can use to upgrade her weapons. These upgrades are actually well thought out. They aren't just simple number increases, but some grant you extra health with each kill, rapid fire, and magnetized ammo. Alan finds these strange writings that give him both gun upgrades and character upgrades. Saga has a more restricted character upgrade system with her charms. You can have a maximum of 4 charms on Saga, and you get them through a side quest that requires you to solve nursery rhymes, which basically just boils down to doing puzzles. These puzzles are actually very fun to solve, and it blends in all aspects of Alan Wake 2's gameplay. The rhymes themselves are puzzles, and you need dolls in order to solve the puzzle, so you have to explore the map to find the puzzle and find the dolls needed to solve the puzzle. Plus, at the end, you're rewarded a charm, but normally to get the charm, you gotta do some combat. And don't sleep on this. These puzzles are important. They're very cryptic, but trust me, they do have a narrative benefit. So reading them and learning them just to solve the puzzle isn't enough. Pay attention to them because they might hint to things in the main story. I really love these nursery rhymes and I wouldn't mind them returning in the sequel or something similar. There are also stashes you can find left behind by the cult, which also require a puzzle. These don't give you character upgrades, but just give you typical gear that you could find anywhere else. But I would advise you to find them because not only is there a trophy associated to them, sometimes, man, you will not have enough ammo on you, and finding these stashes can save your life. It's funny how one of my biggest complaints with Alan Wake 1 was its collectibles and how annoying it was to find them. And in this game, they just completely fixed it. Not only is there a puzzle behind practically every collectible there is in the game, it's fun just to find them, and you don't even have to look up a guide because guess what? As you progress through the game, you will end up finding maps that tell you exactly where these things are. As I mentioned before, Alan Wake 2 being a survival horror game means you have a limited inventory space now. Doing the side quest will reward you with an expanded inventory space, which you will definitely need as you will be in a jam most of the times if you do not pick up these different upgrades for your inventory. Moving to an inventory system has changed how healing works. Before, you would heal automatically or under a light source. You still heal under a light source now, but it's not nearly as much as before. This time around, you actually need to pick up items and heal yourself manually, which does put you at risk of getting hit, as this does not pause the game when you use them. A little fun tip I noticed: if I'm fighting an enemy that's throwing projectiles at me or doing overhead attacks, if I use the big healing item, the whole med kit, the character will typically have to kneel down on the ground to get the med kit going before they do the full heal. And while I'm down below, the hitbox works so that you don't get hit. So you can kind of heal and be safe at the same time. The change to survival horror with the intense enemies that do take a long time to take down, the extreme darkness of the world, all of this stuff builds tension, and this is exactly what you want because this game is blending the narrative with the gameplay. And narratively, the story has a lot of tension, a lot of high moments, a lot of moments where you're worried about the characters and what's going on. So when that actually is in the gameplay, despite all the jank that may have came with it, this to me still feels like the most intense game I played in years, especially in a survival horror setting. Most survival horror games, once you get enough gear, you just feel confident like you could take on the world. This game, even with maxed out gear, even with tons of ammo, I still was cautious. And that is something that I don't find in most survival horror games. Now, the graphics, my guys, the graphics. I'm not even a big graphics person, but I'm a human being at the end of the day. And you know, as humans, we love to see pretty things. Alan Wake 2 is simply just visually stunning. Personally, I decided to play the game in fidelity mode, which does slow down the gameplay as you can only play at 30 frames per second in this mode. But I preferred more visuals here because I just felt like the game in general was a slow-paced game, so it didn't really matter if I was playing at 60 or 30. Just like in the first game, Alan 2 plays with lighting in a beautiful way. The game can be outright pitch black, giving more importance to your flashlight. The bright colors pop off my screen, and in a lot of ways, Alan Wake 2 is more like a light show than a video game. The contrast of bright colors in the darkness really is eye-catching. The far-off lights draw your attention, pulling you closer to key points in the world. The different environments are also packed with tons of details while also being small enough to not overstay their welcome, as you will be traveling by foot the whole time. My favorite locations have to be the nursing home, the amusement park, and the hotel. These locations are packed with so much detail that I'm pretty sure they had to study real-life locations to a T in order to make them feel like they were alive in the game. Now, the characters in the game look great as well. Everyone looks like their real life counterpart, but some people have said that the animations give off the uncanny valley look. Me personally, I didn't feel that way, but you know, to each their own. Some people may see it, some people don't. Here's an example of one that I've seen a lot of people talk about with the character Rose in the diner. They say she looks a little creepy, animations look a little off, but to me, she looked perfectly fine. Sound design is also amazing. Playing Alan Wake 2 with no distractions allows you to hear all the creeping sounds of the environment as well as the amazing soundtrack. The music in this game really is something to talk about. Rarely does a game have music so good that I could listen to it outside of playing the game. My favorite song is the Night Springs outro. Unfortunately, I can't play any of the music in my review because, you know, copyright, but trust me, go out, listen to the music yourself. It is pretty good, and I won't be surprised if I end up downloading some of this music and listening it when I'm going for a walk or something. Performance overall was fine. A few stutters here or there, and at times animations would lower in frame rate, but overall, none of this hindered my playthrough. Now I gotta mention the bugs. I clocked in 150 hours, and for the most part my experience was fine, but I did see an increase in issues on my New Game Plus save file. Final Draft, this game's New Game Plus, was actually added after release. I'm only mentioning this because I've noticed over the years that games that do not include a New Game Plus feature built in tend to add them in later, and when they do this, they end up being buggy. The game actually crashed once, and seeing as this game relies more on manual saves rather than frequent autosaves, that could be a problem. As cool as it is, the biggest bug I ran into is near the end of the game. I actually fell through the map. Like, I'm actually in a location that this character is not supposed to be in, never comes to, and I had just gotten stuck in it. I explored, it was cool, but I got stuck in it, so I had to basically reload the save. Thankfully, the game did autosave near where I fell, so it was all good. Now, I also played through all the DLC of Alan Wake 2, and yes, it is awesome. The Night Springs episodes play out as separate stories that may or may not relate to the actual canon story. Some people may look at these DLCs as a waste of time because fundamentally they play no different than the main game. And because we don't necessarily know if these are canon or not, what's the point of playing through something you basically already have with the main game? But I say you should still play them because each of them have like a different look to them. Like Rose's DLC is more pink and colorful and upbeat, and the other DLCs are more gloomy. I think they're pretty cool aesthetically, and like I said, they do fundamentally play like mechanic. You'll notice mechanics copied over from the base game, so it's nothing new here. But just in case these happen to mean something to the overall universe that Remedy's creating, I think that alone is a reason to play them. And like I said, if you like the base game, you'll like this anyway, so they're inoffensive all around. Now, the Lake House DLC is actually directly connected to the overall plot of Alan Wake 2. As Agent Kieran Estevez, she must explore the FBC Lake House facility and uncover what actually happened there. This is a location that you can come across in the main game, but you can never access it. So it's actually pretty cool that they finally let you go to a location you've probably been curious about the entire playthrough. This DLC 100% was made for people like me, people who absolutely love control. There are tons of secrets and even hints to future events to find here in the Lake House DLC. Plus, some characters from Alan Wake 1 that I didn't hear about may actually pop up in this DLC, and characters from Alan Wake 2 that seem to have disappeared pop up here as well. Although Alan Wake 2 is a survival horror game, I feel the Lake House actually leans more into the horror side than the base game does. The environment most of the times is pitch black, and there's even cool new enemies that you could fight with a new gun. So there is a different gameplay variety here. Agent Estevez overall is a great character, and I hope she returns and maybe has her own game in the future. One thing that applies to all the DLCs, no matter if it's the Night Springs DLC or the Lake House DLC, is that they're woven into the main game. So throughout the main game, you can find options to jump into these DLCs. You don't have to go to them through the menu, but you can if you want to. I thought the way that they wove them into the main campaign was brilliant, and I don't really see that in most DLCs. Most of the time DLCs, even if there's a place in the main game where you can access them, feel like an afterthought or something that clearly wasn't a part of the overall experience. But here, they felt like they were always meant to be here. Alan Wake 2 is one of those works of fiction that's so interesting and deep that it creates the types of fans that turn cult-like. So many story implications are introduced that the obvious answer oftentimes gets ignored because we are so used to Remedy taking us for a spin. Despite its amazing storytelling, gameplay, although fun, had its fair share of hiccups that I would like to see addressed in future installments. The overall package is phenomenal, but these things did hinder it some. Remedy has me stuck in a loop. Even after beating Alan Wake 2, I jumped right back in for New Game Plus to find anything I missed before. Fans online are spiraling out of control, sharing different interpretations of what we all experience. This is exactly what Alan Wake 2 is about. It's about giving gamers an escape from reality, to be drawn into a world not our own and falling deeper and deeper into the minds of the creator. Asking questions, finding answers, and in the end, acceptance. Accepting that everything doesn't need an answer. The answer isn't as important as the joy of questioning, yet the questioning will always lead to answers. Again, we're in a loop. And maybe, just maybe, it's not a loop.
It's a spiral.
I really hope you guys enjoyed the review. You like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell for future videos and reviews. And if any of my reviews help you or inspire you to try out a game, go ahead and pick it up and let me know in the comment section. You guys have a great day. God bless, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.